Alright, we're just going to try that. And of course, all the things have disappeared. Hello, everyone. Apologies. I am dealing with various technical difficulties as usual. There they are. It's the touch back up. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing all right. Sorry, I think I've downloaded a virus, which is irritating because that was not a virus. I don't know. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPG stream with me, Fiona Howard. She, her pronouns, and I run What Am I Rolling, which is a twice-monthly RPG one-shot podcast. And this stream is all about accountability. I was supposed to do this a little bit early, about 8:30, and then I had some plans change, and here I am a little bit later, having done said plans, and I thought, well, rather than just avoiding doing the stream, I thought, well, I'll still do it anyway. So that's all good. I hope you're doing well, and yeah, so it's been a busy couple of days for myself. I was sort of scheduling the next couple of tabletop RPG streams that I wanted to do, certainly reading along with stuff. Let me know in the chat if you're there. I appreciate there are other people streaming just now, so it might be a quiet one tonight and it's a little bit later, but that's okay. Yeah, so I'm looking at a game in which I have actually played on the channel before. It's called 1,000-Year-Old Vampire by Tim Hutchings, and I had it next to me. Everything's going well tonight. There it is. It was hidden under something. So it is this beautiful book, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which apparently my PDF from my Google Drive has given me a virus, which is really annoying because that's not fair. But yes, this is a solo RPG, which is all about you playing a vampire who loses their memory. And I can show you with my copy that I actually got it signed recently. It's an actual drawing that Tim did at UK Games Expo. He's also got, he's got several games out, obviously. He's a very well-known game designer. He's got this book out called A Collection of Improving Exercises, which I have not looked at yet because I've been busy. But yes, so I thought I'd look at this because it is quite... yes, it's a winner of 3 Emmy Awards back in 2020, and it's a very overall an interesting one. I think if you're into solo RPGs, this is definitely one you need to put on your list. So I recommend checking it out. But yes, I've put the link in the chat with Nightbot, where you can get your own copy. Would I say would you want to get the physical copy over the PDF? It depends if your PDF gives you a virus or not. I think with this one, I got the PDF and then I was doing a stream for Dragon Meet a couple of years ago, and I got the physical copy as well, just to be able to have to hand and look through it, because it is really beautiful. Again, you'll see it on the PDF, but look at that gold sort of shine you got going there. It's really, really beautiful. And it's just quite nice to have as a physical copy. It's something you could play over and over again. I know from previous experience that it is it has a couple of hacks at the back, so you can play it over and over again, and the interior art design is quite beautiful, so I would recommend getting a physical copy. However, they are very hard to get hold of. I was managed to get one that was one from one UK supplier that has now gone out of business, which is frustrating. I think that's the thing I get it, like, obviously now in the cost of living crisis, and we're obviously trying to get physical books anywhere across the world thanks to the pandemic and stuff, is really, really difficult. But, you know, I do think, and there is value obviously in PDFs, and I think that's really great. But when something, like, it is very much like an artifact. It's something that you put on a shelf, it's something that you take out and look at. It'd be nice if there was more copies of it available, not only in the UK, but just in everywhere. And I know they are available in different languages as well. So I'm going to flip over to the game, and I'll be honest with you folks. I've kind of come in quite rushing to do the stream, and wanted to get it started on time, which obviously it didn't happen. And I don't know what this next scene is going to look like, so you just got to bear with me as I turn over to the next scene. Oh, well, the PDFs come up, so that's good. But I really wanted to show you the Chrome. There we go, Chrome. It's not Troika. It's 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which is going to be this one. There you go. No, you don't need to see. Oh, well, thank God you didn't see that. Oh, I'm such a mess today. But this is where you can get 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. I'm just going to move it across my screen a little bit. Tim Hutchings makes games. It's 1,000-yearoldvampire.com. It's not the best website, but who am I to judge? It's got a little spiel here about what it is, and here's where you can buy all the other games as well. What I'd say as well is that there's a PDF you can get for $15. There's a companion guide. There's all this thing. He does try very hard to tell you not to buy his games. There's a lot of interesting games I would recommend checking out. Everything is Dolphins is very interesting. I've got a paper copy of that somewhere. The Apollo 47 technical manual PDF is really interesting. It's very improv-y, like kind of game with a lot of information of all the sort of different space missions. You could also get a PDF. You can also get an actual printed copy of that, but it's absolutely massive and would not recommend. But yeah, so it's just getting a sense of the kinds of games you can see on there. I appreciate, again, I've not had time to set up the thing properly, so you can't really see them. But if I click onto 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, here's where you can get it. So yeah, it's about $50 currently, and obviously that's not include shipping. But yes, here you go. You got loads of NEs back in the day. So you've got best rules, best production values, silver product of the year, and indie K 2020 tabletop design. So let's have a read through what it says. Oh god, I just like, why do people not format their websites properly? Look at all that stuff is off the side. Let me move stuff around. So there you go. So 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is a solo RPG of lost memory and vampires. In 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, you chronicle the many centuries of a vampire's existence, beginning with the loss of morality, and ending with inevitable destruction. Prompt-driven play and simple resource tracking provides easy rules for exploring your character's human failings, villainous acts, and surprising victories. Expect gut-churning decisions and hard to put together acts. Hard to reconcile. Irreconcilable acts. The game mechanics are simple and intuitive. Play progresses semi-randomly through a book of prompts which allow you to explore the vampire's wants and needs, resolve problems, and chart the decline into sense. I think it's nonsense, perhaps it's meant to be. Who knows? Play can happen entirely within the character sheet or become a journaling activity. Both work equally well. Fantastic. And yeah, it's been highly recommended. A really famous, not copy of it, but a famous review. It was Shut Up and Sit Down, as always. Very useful. Sorry, my brain went blank. Role-playing game and board game review website. They don't do too much RPG stuff anymore, but they're doing a lot more. They're doing a lot more of it recently because people do want to hear about it. So I'd recommend checking those out as well. So with all that out of the way, let's remove that and let's look at the PDF. This one, which does not have a virus. So yeah, it's on its side, but that's that front sort of page that I sort of showed you briefly earlier. And here you go. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So this, again, as you will see, looking through it, it feels like an actual prop, this sort of book. And what I say is like 180. It's about 188 pages, roughly, and it has the physical copy has these two bookmarks to, as you'll see with parts of gameplay, to sort of mark where you have been and where you're going, etc. Withdrawn. Excellent. I'm going to read this out. Sorry, I just got distracted by what it was saying. So, this book was once tied to these information sources, so 1000yearoldvampire.com. Tell me about your games. If the above contact methods do not work, simply write your letter on a piece of salted paper and hide it under a stone containing no ferrous metals. I will find it. Alright. 1000-Year-Old Vampire. Oh, roll credits. I don't know if you could. I don't know if it. Oh, it does show up really well on the stream, but like I actually can't see that properly on the actual monitor that I've got here. But yeah, you can see some sort of making out of an image of some sort, and then at the bottom there it says "A game by Tim Hutchings." So as you can see, it's almost like for goodness sake, it's almost like pieced together sort of newspaper articles and clippings, and that's what the sort of art style you get is like bits and pieces from there. But it's really interesting and almost very evocative. So here we go. Look at this, incredible. It just looks so good, doesn't it? So, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is a lonely solo role-playing game in which you chronicle the unlife of a vampire over many centuries of their existence, beginning with the loss of mortality. I don't know why I'm saying mortality, and ending with their inevitable destruction. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just in case it's a little bit hard to read. This vampire will surprise you as they do things that are unexpected, unpleasant, and sometimes tragic, making gut-churning decisions, performing irreconcilable acts, and resolving difficult narrative threads that are what this game is about as you explore the vampire's human failings, villainous acts, and surprising victories. The game mechanics are simple and intuitive. I appreciate I've just read all this out. The play progresses semi-randomly through the book of prompts. In the prompts section, answer the prompts to learn about your vampire's wants and needs, to learn what challenges they face, and to chart their decline into it must be right senescence. Build up a character record of memories, and then lose them to the inexorable crush of time. See everyone you've loved and hated grow old and die, and then turn to dust. Oh, I'm going to change the music because it's a little bit intense for me. I wonder what I can put it down to. Maybe we'll put it down to, because we're on Wicked Rights just now, and again, all the music here is provided by Travis Savoy, I believe that's how you pronounce their name, RPG music maker. Which is all very good. I tried to go for some sort of like vampire type ones. It's a Curse of Strahd book. So I've gone for March of the Dead, see if that's a little bit less intense. We'll find out though. Alright, all that out of the way. So this is the trigger warning bit. I seem to remember this when I played it last time. While playing this game, you'll encounter themes of death, selfishness, and predation. Predation? Predation. Your character may be injured, victimized, trapped, or killed. Your character will murder and victimize people of all sorts, possibly including children, animals, loved ones, marginalized people, or themselves. You might find yourselves exploring the themes of imperialism, colonialism, or oppression. Characters might engage in self-harm or drug abuse. Illness, debilitation, and body horror may come into play. Your character may have their memories altered. They will certainly forget important things. Some of this will emerge from prompts. Some will emerge from the choices you make as a player. This is a personal, challenging game for mature adults. Please play hard, but stay aware of yourself and your feelings. Some good thoughts about safety in solo games can be found in Appendix 3. That's always a really interesting sentence, isn't it? Please play hard. I think, obviously, safety tools and boundaries, like I'm obviously a massive proponent of them. I'm using them in all of my games. And I feel like sometimes when people not apply to be in a game, want to play a game, but I need to keep myself. I think it's such a thorny subject that I clearly don't. I've done so well so far trying to get myself into outside of knots and stuff. But I think for this, please play hard. It's like, please lean into this narrative. Please give it all you've got, whilst being aware of how to keep yourself safe. Because maybe sometimes we need to push up against our boundaries. If I think we need to allow ourselves to push up against our boundaries. That's what I'm trying to say. I think sometimes we stay very clear of our boundaries, and that's totally fine. But then I think there is something about experiencing something like this game, which is so unique and so different. I've never played anything like this before, and being willing to go beyond like a veil of some sort, perhaps. I don't know. I like that phrase. Please play hard, but stay aware of yourself and your feelings. So, what is needed to play? Well, I'm so glad you asked. You will need a 10-sided dice, or a d10, and a 6-sided die, a d6. If you like dice, there are random number tables in the appendix too. So yeah, this game's got everything. If you really don't have dice for it. To use them, all you need to do is drop a coin, point a finger, use some other method to choose a random number from the table. We can have a look at it in a second. You'll also need a way to record your vampire story. Paper and pencil are fine, although it's very convenient to use a word processing document or other digital text tool. In a quick game, you only need a few pieces of paper to maintain a character record, but in a journaling game, you might fill a whole diary. If you're brave or foolish, you can write this in a book. You can write in this book in the spaces provided. Oh yes, I forgot. Again, not. Oh, by the way, there may be spoilers. Sorry, I am all over the stream tonight, so I apologise in advance. But yeah, some of these spaces I won't show you too much, but you can see you get the prompt at the top of the page, and there's a massive gap where you put it. So it could be that you use a physical book as a proper artifact RPG. I would never do this with this book because it costs too much to come to the UK. So absolutely not. But it's a nice thought, right? I guess if you printed out the PDF, you get something there. Yeah. In the appendix, we will also find multiplayer rules. Oh gosh. In the appendix, you'll also find multiplayer rules, safety tools which will let you push yourself as hard as possible, alternate prompts, examples of play, and some context for the creation of the game itself. So that's quite nice. A little bits of extra sort of behind the scenes stuff as well. Yes, the alternate prompts I sort of mentioned about before. Multiplayer rules is an interesting one, so there is currently, at time of streaming, there is a kickstarted game called 500 Years Old Vampire, which is, I believe, a RPG/card game which allows it to become a multiplayer game, more so than it could be. I assume with this one the multiplayer rules are just that you find the diary, or you share one character between several people, perhaps. I don't know. Okay, so you're vampire. So this is like vampire creation, character creation. The vampire whose chronicles you will record in this game will be represented by 5 different traits: memories, skills, resources, characters, and marks. Almost every time you receive a prompt, one of your traits will be modified. For instance, you may be instructed to check a skill. To do so, you place a check mark next to that skill. Alternatively, the prompt may cause you to lose a trait, which is indicated by striking it out with a line. Ensure that lost trait stays readable because you may refer to it back later or even restore it. Some prompts will give you even more dramatic instructions for changing your traits. At all times, follow the instructions given in the prompt. How cool is this? I love the sort of like library stamps that are over these pages. Sorry, if I'm looking around really oddly, it's because there's a fly in the room. It's like a tiny fly, and I hate them so much. It's one of those little tiny ones that is clearly summer, so it's come in. So I might slap it in a second. So apologies. Memories and experiences are important moments that have shaped your vampire, crystallized in writing. They make up the core of the vampire's self, the things they know and care about. An experience is a particular event. A memory is an arc of experiences that are tied together by a subject or theme. Okay. Experiences cover a particular event, but the amount of time represented by that event might vary dramatically. An experience might describe a few seconds of impactful events, or it might cover 200 years of lurking in an old castle. Almost every prompt will create an experience, and experiences will eventually combine to make with one another to become memories. But there is only so much your vampire can remember. To reflect this limitation, there is only a finite amount of space for memories on your record sheet. Old memories will be lost over the course of the game, making room for new ones. You will need to make difficult choices about which memories to preserve and which to forget. These hard decisions are the core of the game. Interesting. So yes, if you can imagine that the memory, it's like the overall arching sort of theme, and experiences are little bits that are sort of connected to it. So it could be like love interest is the main one over top, and it could be like first meeting them as an experience, courting them or wooing them, making it official like a wedding, or just living together. Any of those experiences could be combined into a memory. Let's see. In game terms, an experience is a single sentence that describes the resolution of a prompt. Memories are a collection of related experiences built up over time. Your vampire begins the game with the space for 5 memories, each of which can contain up to 3 experiences. Okay. Interesting. So, yes, about 15 experiences in total. No. Yes, 15 experiences in total. Although a prompt might ask several questions, an experience does not need to address all of them. An experience should be a single evocative sentence. An experience is a distillation of an event, a single sentence that combines what happened and why it matters to your vampire. A good format for an experience is description of the event, how I feel, or what I did about it. If necessary, you can add a dash at the end to include more information. Okay, another image. Oh, got some vampire hunting happening there, or vampire killing. Be conscious of any trait that affected by the prompts, such as characters or resources, and try to incorporate them. Write in the first person from the vampire's point of view. One vampire might have the following experience. Stalking the deserts over lonely years, I have watched generations of Christian knights waste themselves on the swords of the Saracen? Yeah. It is a certainty that Charles is among them. I dream of his touch as I sleep beneath the burning sand. Memories are made up of experiences. I've just said this already. A memory is a section of the record sheet that contains up to 3 experiences. Memories are not necessarily linear or chronological. If a new experience clearly belongs within an existing memory, then you can add it to that memory. If not, record the experience in a new memory that may require forgetting of an earlier memory, a whole collection of other experiences. So, an easy way to think of it is a memory is a container for experiences that are related in some way, and an experience must always be placed within a memory as soon as it's been created. Okay. Our earlier example might be expanded with a second experience like this. So, we've done the stalking in the deserts over lonely years. I've watched generations of Christian knights waste themselves on the swords of the Saracen. It is a certainty that Charles is among them. I dream of his touch as I sleep beneath the burning sands. I sift the bones of the dead abandoned in the wastes. I do not find Charles, but I do uncover weaponry and treasures that I have used to pay his debts in Haifa. Memory can contain up to 3 experiences. Each memory should be defined by theme, trait, or other subject that links its component experience in an intelligible way. Whenever a new experience does not fit into existing memory, place it within a new memory, assuming one is available. Your vampire is allowed to have 5 memories. All the memories are lost when new experiences occur and you have no place to put them. If you have filled all 5 memories and need to start a new one, strike out an existing memory and all its experiences it contains. Forgetting things is a fundamental aspect of the game, so embrace it. The decision about which memories are lost belongs to you as the player. It is not a decision that the vampire is consciously making. Unless instructed to otherwise, you may strike out any memory you like to make room for a new experience. There is one way to preserve memories when you run out of space. Instead of losing an existing memory, you can move it into a diary. Yes, I remember this because I think I had 2 Word documents when I was doing the stream, and I would move one memory into the other one. So this is good to know. Oh, so this is an example. So this is the kind of artwork I was sort of talking about before, where it almost feels like artifact-wise, almost feels like what's the word? Like a really, really weird way of bullet journaling, perhaps. Interesting. Is this one memory? I guess it is one memory, perhaps. So I'll read it out. So this is an example, and it says it's on like some sort of old-fashioned map with different text, almost like as if it's been cut out of a newspaper, perhaps. Like sentences have been cut out of a newspaper. With the remaining Macallan clan in tow, I flee into China. They confiscate our arms, but I am recognized as a gentleman and a man of a powerful bureaucrat, and made guest of a powerful bureaucrat. In the humid jungle climate, insects burrow into my body. I coat myself in poisons to stay there feeding. This fleshy shell horrifies me. I can ride for days in the shadow of a ferocious storm. The youngest daughter of the Minels, an accomplished duelist, now seeks me here in Istanbul. It was a mistake to tell the family that Edel is buried here. Sanso takes my place serving the sons of Emperor Atik. I teach him the way of the court. And this was very hard writing. I'm going to have to zoom in a little bit. Tamisu the magician sees the demon within me and worships it. Ooh. I manipulate him into my wants and claim his house for my own. An angel appears in a blaze of light and glory, speaking in a tongue I could not understand. Dazzled and helpless, a holy prophecy is written on my chest in words of fire. Incredible. Incredible. See, when I did it for the podcast, I actually described like the whole... I always do this with solo RPGs. I always just over-describe what I'm doing and try and give a sort of context to it. And then when it comes to actually writing the thing, I'm like, what I just said. So I think it's actually quite tricky. I think, obviously, solo RPGs I don't think are meant to be a performance or meant to be shared on podcasts, because it ultimately that sort of changes the way that they are come about. And obviously there's massive spoilers for certain solo RPGs if you're doing it as a stream or as a live show. But I think it's something nice to be able to indulge and talk about your feelings out loud and then try and crystallize it into a single thought rather than just writing in silence. I don't know. That's what I like, but what do I know? Oh, here we go. Oh, so it is example experiences. Sorry, I forget. It is like a proper spread. Russian nobles bribe me to cleanse undeeded lands of freeholders. I empty the peasants' mine and send them to work my stronghold in the east. Calwyn and I construct an enclosed room in the back of our motorhome. At night he does not see the moon, and during the day I do not see the sun. I bed soldiers as a benediction. During the day they fight my battles, and at night they feed my hungers. Oh, wow. I adopt a life of a wandering tinkerer, and come to find joy in a simple trade. In the shadow of Bavaria Alps. In the Bavarian Alps, I am known by the name Hubertus. Yes, and hailed as the jolly fellow. Sorry. I should have known that late at night these words will not work very well. The newspaper reporters demanded something fantastic, and I gave it to them. The murderer's head would be preserved in a jar at the university. Oh, that's a great flavoursome line. Incredible. I can no longer easily tell humans apart, so my feeding taboos fall away with the years. All blood is wellness for my dry husk. So, going back to the diary. So, a diary can hold up to 4 of your vampire's memories. Unlike the memories themselves, the diaries are physical objects that are added to your resource list. You may freely create a diary whenever you need to remove a memory into it. Like any other resource, a diary can be lost. When this happens, strike out the memories it held. Your vampire can have one diary at a time, and it must contain at least one memory. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a ton of diaries that are half filled and stuff. So I like the idea that you can only have one at a time, and I'm like, as a human, I have many that are just not filled at all. I know it's a game mechanic. A memory placed in a diary is no longer in the vampire's head. It exists only in the diary, and the vampire accepts whatever is written as truth. Once a memory has been transferred to the diary, you may not add any further experiences to that memory. Ooh, so it's kind of like not even a last resort, it's just kind of like, once it's done, it's done. Cool. To move a memory from your diary, simply indicate the memory is now written in a diary. For example, you might write diary next to the memory, or connect it to the diary icon on the character sheet with a drawn arrow. When you create a diary, give it a short description and add it to the resource list. It might say something like, diary, a sturdy leather-bound book, or diary, a collection of pictogram-adorned pots. Oh, that's very cool. Diary, a golden filigree signed bordering gold filigree signs bordering frightful ritual masks. A ritual mask, sorry, words. A Password-protected forum on an archaic website. Well, that bloody worked for me, did it? Alright, on to skills. Skills describe the capabilities and characteristics of your character, of your vampire. They indicate what your vampire can do and what they might do. So, for example, swordplay, relaxing banter, operate heavy machinery, I do not blink the sand away, and I teach the Nasina are all acceptable skills. When instructed to record a new skill, you should relate it to the content of the prompt. What it will feel like for a vampire to use a skill tied to a memory that has long been lost. What will it feel like for a vampire to use a skill tied to a memory that has long been lost? Some prompts will instruct you to check a skill. To do so, place a check mark next to that skill on your record sheet. Mechanically, it indicates that that skill has been used. Narratively, a check skill gives you some sort of flavour to your answers to later prompts. And check skill gives you something to flavour your answers to later prompts. If unchecked skills are what your vampire is capable of, checked skills are what they have done. They are part of your vampire's being. They are who the vampire is. Of course, it is entirely possible that your vampire might have skills that you do not want to check. Instead of fighting this, revel in the plight of your humane vampire when they go out to help a friend. Revel in the plight of your humane vampire when they go to help out a friend out of a bureaucratic jam and find that the only skill they can check is rage and kill. You may only check a skill once. If you're instructed to lose a skill, strike it out. It is gone and no longer influences the way your vampire moves through the world. Resources. Resources are assets or structures that are useful to your vampire, or items that they value. For example, knightly equipage, a loyal impy, a diamond tiara, a castle, or the castle Umbridged, a business empire, a lucky penny, a screened-in Chara Blanc, a Roman legion, a silvered key to a Ponate's treasure vault, a carboy of acid, a box of tallow candles are all acceptable and engaging resources. In the prompts, there will be occasionally references made to stationary resources. These are possessions that can't be physically hauled away with the vampire when they leave an area. For example, a haunted cave, an elephant-sized statue of Set. Got lots of Egypt and Egyptian themes. A hidden pit house, a hereditary title to a land. When a prompt instructs you to create resources, be sure to create resources that are contextually appropriate, even if this leads to resources that aren't necessarily the most exciting or most useful. When a prompt causes your vampire to lose a resource, strike it out. Leave the entry legible, because lost things might come back in time. Let your available resources flavour how you write experiences. Curry your horse, ply your whip, command your submarine. Let resources figure prominently when you are made to strike them out. Let resources figure prominent. Figure, like feature. Let resources feature prominently when you are made to strike them out. Just don't lose your mansion, but just don't lose your mansion. Burn it to the ground, or at least describe a fierce legal battle over the deed. Yes, it's not just like gone. It's interesting. Like it's got a flavour what the action is happening. Don't limit your vampire stuff to the resources listed on the record sheet when answering the prompts. Of course your rich Flemish vampire will have to have some fencing foiled if one needed. It's just not a resource which can be spent to satisfy a mechanical needs of the game. That makes sense. They always have the stuff to hand, but they can't spend it. If tools and homes or tombs are needed for narrative colour, you may create them as needed, just don't write them down. Totally makes sense. Characters. I keep switching up. Characters are the people with whom your vampire has a relationship. Each character should be named and described in a sentence fragment such as Lawrence Hulmuller, descendant of Baron Hulmuller, or Sister Adelpho. Aldelpho, Sister Aldelpho, a meddlesome nun. Add more descriptors each time you interact with them in the course of resolving a prompt. Lawrence, from the previous example, might become Lawrence Holman. Might be that you free him from a Turkish prison. Sorry, I can't keep going over this. I'm clearly not doing well, and I can already tell that this has not been a good stream, so I apologise in advance. I'm sure it's fine. I'm just all over the place tonight. But I'm being accountable, so that's more important. If it makes sense to include a character when resolving a prompt, do so if the prompt doesn't tell you to include one. In addition, create a new character if the prompt instructs you to include one, but there are none available. A character can be mortal or immortal. You will be told which type when you are instructed to create a new character. Mortals are regular human beings and other creatures that die with the passage of time. Immortals, on the other hand, are supernatural beings for whom time has little meaning. They might be other vampires, angels or demons, ghosts, scientific experiments gone wrong, forgotten deities, underground lurkers, meddlesome ancestors, invisible shamblers, softly spoken animated corpses, household gods or sprites, disembodied heads enduring cursed existences under bell jars, or anything else suitably bizarre. I think I was super boring when I did this live stream, and it was just a werewolf, or a werewolf hunter, I think it was. Yeah, but I love the idea of it being like a disembodied head. That's oh, now I can't think of the Netflix show. As Santa Clarita Diet, there you go, with Nathan Fillion being the head. Occasionally, you will realise that a mortal must have died of old age. This might happen every 4-5 prompts. When it does, strike out the character's name. Outside of this, the characters can't be killed unless a prompt tells you to do so otherwise, but you can narrate about them as you would like. Okay. A mark. A mark is a visible indication of your vampire's undying state, as with every other thing that sets them apart from mortal people. As ever, an ever-bleeding wound on a throat, eyes are blank and white, a trailing spectre, a ferocious scar, a hollow abdomen full of rats. A mark is something that your vampire carries for their entire existence. When creating a mark, consider whether your vampire conceals it and how. Ooh, so here's some examples here. I know it's covered by this thing, but it says, my eyes are hypnotic, so I must wear smoked glasses. Under the moon, my shadow takes the shape of a jaguar. Animals fear me and children cry. I have hands with fingers that bend backwards into backwards claws. I wear long sleeves to cover them from view. Terrifying. What is a vampire? Again, I can't read all of it. And again, I know this is the whole point of this, but just so you know, again, if you just only listen to this stream, lots of the text stuff is covered with over sort of like other bits of newspaper and stuff. The vampire is a character you will follow for the narrative. How they manifest their vampiric nature is up to you, but 1,000-year-old vampire makes several assumptions. To get the best experience of this game, your vampire should prey on human beings for sustenance, should seek to camouflage themselves amongst those on which they feed. They should have been a human once and still have human needs in one sense or another. Should be susceptible to environmental dangers that regular mortals might not care about, such as sunlight. Should be practically immortal, and should mostly be a loner. The prompts in 1,000-Year-Old Vampire are not necessarily geared towards complex political machinations between factions of immortal beings. So you're not going to get your interview with a vampire Anne Rice type thing, perhaps. All right. So that sort of overall, that's what the sort of basic game terms have been described as. Let's go into vampire creation. So we start by imagining a person in the distant past, a Roman emperor, a French knight, I'm going to try it, a Mesopotamian midwife, a French knight. This person will become your vampire. Imagine when and where they were born and who they were in life. Start with a memory of one experience that encapsulates their history. This first experience is a little different to most experiences in that it's a broad summary of the vampire's life before becoming an undead thing. This experience will be slotted into the character's record's first memory. Next, create at least 3 mortals and add them to the vampire's record sheet. They will all have a relationship with your vampire, relatives, friends and lovers, enemies, mentors, debitors, or anything else appropriate for the time and the place you have chosen. Describe each character in a few words. Know that these characters can be and should be very important but will not be around for long. Give your vampire to be 3 skills fitting for their lot in life and 3 resources they obtained while still mortal. Remember, resources can be almost anything, big or small. A resource is a resource, whether it is an obsidian knife or a fleet of warships. Then, create 3 more experiences, with each one being entered into a separate memory. So therefore you're going to have 4 memories in total at the beginning of the game. Each of these experiences should combine 2 of your vampire's traits. For example, if your vampire has the longship as a resource, and the character Gundar, a Viking Jarl, like a father to me, you might write an experience like, Gundar takes me on my first voyage aboard the longship. His touch calms me when we first leave the sight of land. So it's sort of creating those connections and those things to those like relationships that you just created, which is very important. It's interesting how in D&D, as far as I'm aware, there's no sort of advice on how to create, or that you should create positive relationships or something that the GM can hold on to, especially when we're going towards a more role-playing types of games now. A lot of people still like being orphans and basically doing a Batman edgelords, right? That's what they're called. Lastly, create an immortal. This is a creature that is gifted or cursed. This is the creature that gifted or cursed your vampire with unlife. Create a mark and an experience that explains how your vampire became a creature of the night. The corresponding experience... Oh, no, sorry, I'm not going to read this out. I should read it out, shouldn't I? One such mortal is Baron Holmüller, a Austrian noble and vampire. He stole the deed to my land. The corresponding experience could be, I duelled the eerie Baron across the rooftops of the abbey. He nearly cuts my head from my shoulders, but I do not die. Which leads to the mark, my neck is permanently broken. I wear tight scarves and walk slowly to maintain my dignity. Holy shit, that's terrifying. Once you have finished your vampire, they will have 3 skills, 3 resources, a mark, at least 3 mortals, 1 immortal, and 1 experience in each of their 5 memories. Very good. Yeah, there you go. So very straightforward in terms of character creation. It was over 2 pages. Not bad. Easy enough. And no stats. But what I hear is the dice for, well, let me tell you. To play 1000-year-old vampire, you'll answer a series of prompts. Answer these prompts to learn about your character, or your vampire even, experiencing their travails and be surprised by their doings. Responding to the prompts in a satisfying way is the joy of this game. After you've played for a few times, you might find additional prompts in Appendix 1. Yes, so the reason it sort of mentions this quite a lot is, and I know it's going to go on to this, but I'm going to just say it anyway, some of these pages, some of these prompts, when you get to them, you actually see there's actually a couple on each page. Now that's because if you, for whatever reason, revisit a page, you go down to the next prompt, so you're not answering the same prompt each time in your playthrough. You can answer prompts either in writing, like a journal, or just out loud to yourself. This book is designed so that you can write your responses directly onto its pages if you are brave. I am not brave. Number your entries to keep to keep the chronology straight. In the process of answering prompts, you create, lose, and alter your vampire's traits as instructed. Every time you answer a prompt, you must create an experience and add to a memory unless instructed to otherwise. This is where the dice mechanic comes in. So you roll your d10 and your d6 and subtract the results of the d6 from the d10. If that number is a positive number, move forward that many prompts. However, if it's negative, as it's very likely to, sometimes you roll low on the d10 and high on the d6, move backwards instead. A 0, a sort of nothing roll, if they both cancel each other out, means that you encounter the same prompt a second time. And it gives an example here, which we don't really need to do, but I think that's very straightforward. I really like this mechanic. I'll tell you now, in this game, I think it's 99 prompts. I will double check. Because it doesn't take up that much of the book, actually. Oh, no, it's much less than that. 80 prompts, 80 in total, and you can see probably a little bit there, it says the game is over if you ever get to 80. So yeah, so I like it how you can keep going back and forth, and it's not about the further you progress within the books. Obviously, there are some of these prompts that will say that it has been that it's like choose your own adventure almost, that you're going back and forth, which is got a nice feel to it. That's why I quite like having the physical book to do that. And obviously with those bookmarks, it's helpful to just mark where you've previously been as well. You will notice, this is what I was talking about earlier, you'll notice that prompts have a second or third entries. These are counted the second and third times you land on a prompt. If you land on a prompt and have already responded to all of the prompts, all the entries, move along to the next prompt. Simple, straightforward. Now, I know what you're asking, is that what if you have a skill or a resource that has to be checked or crossed out, but neither of them are? Excuse me. If you are instructed to check a skill but have no unchecked skills available, lose a resource instead. This is brutal because this happened to me, and I think I lost my diary in that stream, and it really hurt. Likewise, if you can't lose a resource, when instructed to do so, check a skill. When either of these substitutions occurs, it indicates things have gone very badly for your vampire, so narrate the worst outcome. Only skills and resources may be substituted for each other. You may not lose characters, memories, or marks in place of a skill or resource. Yeah, makes them interchangeable. If you must lose a skill or resource and you have none, then your game is over. Narrate your vampire's demise using the prompt for inspiration. The game ends when you are unable to check or lose a skill or resource when you're required to do so, or the prompt tells you that the game has ended. So ideally, you want to, there's no way to win solo RPGs, but it's always better, I think, when the game tells you it's over, rather than you've run out of resources or you've lost all your skills. Oh, look, another great faceplate on this. So, there are two styles of play, if you're interested. Quick game and journaling game. Quick game answers the prompts entirely in the memory area of your character record. This method is fast and satisfying and gives you creative flexibility in interpreting your vampire story. In the journaling game, the difference is that you keep the diary, answering the prompts and writing, dedicating a short paragraph or so to each question. You'll end up with a document that you can look back over later. In addition to a journal entry, you must still add an experience for each prompt. So yeah, like I said, it becomes either a keepsake or an artifact RPG, which is the idea that you have something physical or something to show for your passing rather than just a one and done, so to speak. In case of any contradictions or complications, your memories and experiences take precedence over the detail of your journal entries in the journaling game. As you play, you'll come to understand the aspects of the story that may not have been clear earlier on. You can modify or ignore earlier journal entries if needed, but you may never modify memories unless instructed to do by a prompt. Now, answering prompts. I think this is always the key thing, because whenever you're prompted in solo games, you're like, oh god, how should I answer as myself or as the character? Tim says, answer the prompts in a way that feels natural. Never force things. If relationships exist between existing traits or past events relate to a prompt, work them in. You do not need to answer every question in a prompt. I think what's interesting when you're an improviser, suddenly everything is connected in some way. It's very Douglas Adams, Dirk Gently, holistic detective agency, right? So it's very hard. I have to stop myself from connecting everything to make the story make sense. Prompts will often combine to tell stories. It's helpful if a character was introduced in one prompt and in the following prompt has the vampire acquire a new resource find a relationship between them. Oh, and the following prompt has the vampire acquire a new resource, find the relationship between them. Any amount of time can pass between prompts, so several prompts might join together to make a story that lasts days. It makes a story arc that might last days or even decades. Cede control to the game. These prompts are sparks for creativity and connection. Feel free to gently reinterpret the answers to earlier prompts to make better sense of the current situation. We should not try to tie everything together, that's what I was just saying. It's not necessary. Your vampire will live for 1,000 years, and many small, unresolved events will occur during their existence. Sometimes a character will appear and then leave the game without accomplishing anything of note, or a resource will go unused, both of which are fine. That's just how life, or unlife, is. Overthinking is not helpful. Need that on a shirt. Not every prompt needs to be important. You need not explain every decision you make whilst answering a prompt. You can let some of it go till later. Let the game bring back what matters. Be uncomfortable. Your protagonist is a vampire, even if you try to keep them decent and humane. Terrible and delicious things are going to happen. You should have moments of discomfort as prompts combine with constrained resources to result in your vampire murdering loved ones and performing strange deeds. This is the strength of the game, so let darkness fall where it may. Prompts are opportunities to learn about history and the real world. Turn to Wikipedia and read about the different types of Turkish nobility if you need to. The game will wait. So that's cool that it actually encourages you to stop and look these things up rather than just make them all up on the spot. I think that is kind of important, and it just means get a little bit more involved with what's going on, which is quite nice. I would say I think I struggled a bit with my character creation initially because I was like, I don't know what's like old. And I think actually I set my character as like something in like the 15th century, like a French milkmaid or something ridiculous like that. But I feel like you could start now and then just go into almost like a sci-fi kind of setting, you know, like a dystopian future where everything's gone to shit. So you could have like a modern 1,000-year-old vampire, that so to speak. I don't know. I think I did struggle with with that sort of passage of time. That's the only thing. Which is, no, it's going to do it. Sorry, there's that fly. Passage of time. This game is about the grind of centuries. Oh yeah, I've got water here. Fantastic. Your vampire will lose their very memories to the passage of the years and must pursue continuous reinvention to keep themselves up to date, up with the revolution of society around them. Time is very loose, so imagine its progression as you like. Think about historical events and work them in when it feels right. World wars and political upheavals are hugely important events, even for vampires. For guidance, consider the first 7 or 8 prompts you answer to be the first busy years after your character becomes a vampire. Everyone they will know is still alive in the world, and the world is still the world of their mortal life. By contrast, their final experiences might take place in the early 21st century. Could be. As it says, don't fret about specific years, but do watch for obvious breaks in timelines. A series prompts might interrelate to tell a small story, only for something to interrupt that story. Take the opportunity to jump ahead a few decades. However, if you reach a game-ending prompt and it's only the 15th century, that's fine too. See, I think you could go to sci-fi, it's great. And then that's kind of it. It then goes on to the prompts, which we're not going to go through in full, but I just wanted to give you an example of it there. But it says here to review. Start at prompt 1 on the next page, and then you roll the d10 and the d6 and subtract the d6 result from the d10 and move forward that many prompts. Remember that a positive number moves you forward, a negative number moves you back. You may not pass prompt 1, fine, you just encounter prompt 1 again. A 0 means you stay on the same prompt, and when you land on the prompt, resolve the first entry at the top of the page, and if you land on it again, go for the next entry, and so on and so forth until if you've gone through all those entries, you go on to the next prompt. Dead simple, dead straightforward. And I really like it. I really like that sort of system, that mechanic. It's easy. And it makes sense that, you know, it's a D10 and a D6. Those feel like good enough numbers to break. I guess if you wanted to, you could, you know, if you wanted to do like a D8 and a D4 or yeah, that, or a D6 and a D12 perhaps, or a D8 and a D20 would be another one if you wanted a bit more variety. But yeah, so I'm just going to show you what the actual sort of layout looks like. I've shown you a little bit from the physical aspect, but we'll read prompt 1 at least. Whoa, so prompt 1 says, in your blood hunger, you destroy someone close to you. Kill a mortal character. Straight off. Create a mortal if none are available, and take the skill bloodthirsty. So that is the first prompt that you always get on that. So that's really cool. But yeah, I don't know if you... Oh, you can see it a lot better on the screen, but each of these pages has like a sort of hidden, very, very, very thin sort of image or background stuff, and it's all these sort of... I think... I will... Again, I'll check it in a second, but I think it's all this sort of free art that's sort of put in, and it feels very... I know the word's not lithograph, that's not what it is, but oh, I just like it. It's just almost just showing through what this memory is that you have. But yes, like I said, you've got 80 of these things. Apologies if it's buffering, it's clearly quite a big file. And now you can't see any of it. Good job, Fiona. So I'm going to move through these all. Where are we? 22, keep on going. 42. Because I just want to see what the other appendix is. Because as you see, it's a very, very straightforward game, and I don't really want to spoil it. Because the reason that I decided to pick this game to read through very quickly, as you can tell, it's like a very easy read, is that I am going to be doing another run through of 1,000 Year Old Vampire as a collaboration in the, well, not the near future, in a couple of months' time. But using a different way of putting things together. So maybe I'll use the prompts from before, because I don't really remember them, but there's also, as I said, these appendix. So they got alternate prompts. So yeah, you enjoy them in place of regular prompts, save your original prompt page and use one of these in place of that number. Not all of these have multiple entries, so that's good to know, so you can't just replace like to like. They're not in any particular chronological order, proceed with caution. Some of these might be odd, repetitive, or nonsensical. Some might break the rules or be unclear, so just roll with it. Always roll with it. Go like that advice. So let's have a look at the first one. Look at that image. Terrifying. Oh, I see. So they just happen, I guess. You just pick them and go. You don't necessarily... Honestly, it doesn't go to 80, perhaps. Yeah, so that makes sense. Again, I appreciate it. It's kind of tiny, this writing. It's much tinier than the... I think that's my one thing, is that writings in this book is quite small. I'm going to see what it looks like on the physical page. I bet it's going to be absolutely teeny tiny. Yeah, that's tiny. I'm having to hold it quite close to my face because I'm an old lady. So that's a little bit... Oof. I've just seen one there. What disease have you begun to spread to those you bite? Ooh, not a good one. So anyway, that's the first lot of alternate prompts, which is good. Oh, there's a Chinese fortune cookie there. Or a fortune cookie, even. And then there's some additional prompts by somebody called Jesse Rainbow. Interesting. So it's not all Tim Hutchings. That's cool. Again, I don't want you to go through all of them because that'll be spoilers. Oh, some more here. Additional prompts by Elizabeth Belli-Saro and Amber Autumn Faybrook. Great name. Oh, it's an alternate starting prompt. Excellent. Very cool. I like how they indicate the different appendix or the different sort of chapters with this sort of around all these sort of books there's almost like a frame, and each of them is a different colour for the alternate prompts, which is really lovely. Just scrolling through. I bet this would be fun actually to make your own version of it. Oh, and there's an alternate ending prompt as well, so maybe I'd use that one. Oh, and more. Jackson Tegu has done some additional prompts as well. Oh, but only a couple of the last ones. Object? Oh. Oh, interesting. they've put it so that they've got memories. I can already see it says bookmark your present day and flip back by 12 pages. Oh, that's quite cool. These prompts actually tell you different things. Whoa, no holding back this visit. Thank you. Hey, Brian, how are you? Sorry, I've been really sort of engaged with looking at this thing. Having a bit of a bad start to the stream, but I'm glad you're here. I was just saying, so we've gone through sort of the main sort of mechanics and how to create a vampire, and then these are the alternate ones. And as I say, the reason I'm sort of reading this through is it seems very straightforward, because obviously there's all these different, it's just prompts, and you roll a d10 and then a d6, and then you take the result of the d6 away from the d10, and that's how many prompts you move either forwards or backwards. So it's obviously dead straightforward in terms of like creating a character or stuff. It's because I'm actually going to be doing a stream of this, or some sort of collaboration project with a group in a couple of months' time, so I thought I might as well just have a double check on this as well. But yeah, I really love the layout, and I was going to tell you what, as you'll hear, just for you, let me show you the actual physical copy that I have. It's very, very beautiful. I really love it, but I was just saying at the beginning of the stream is that I definitely would recommend getting it. However, it's about 50 quid in the US, and it costs quite a bit to get it shipped to me, so it is. I would recommend, if you're not so sure about it, getting the PDF, which is about $15 on itch, or from 1000-Year-Old Vampire website. So just thought I'd let you know that, because you're here. Special. Cool. So yes, we've got object stuff, art. So these must be themed kind of prompts, which is quite cool. Oh, I see. Actually, these prompts go higher. They go higher than 80, which is the original prompt number. So that maybe is something as well. I mean, I think I might just like. Oh, I don't know. I think I just maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'd use this one. Again, it's tricky because this game is supposed to be replayable so many times. I don't know if I'll ever get above 100 before it will just say you've died. You've died. Legend? What? Yeah, legend. Maybe, like I said, I think stuff like this. I'd love to do one like a hack of it, which would be almost like a sci-fi. You go into those, like, into the future. 1000-Year-Old Vampire, but from the 18th century, and then you proceed to go into the future and just like, what does that mean for you? Hunters, war, all dangerous stuff. But there's loads of alternate prompts, almost like double what you get for normal prompts. So that's really cool. Again, like I said, it's very replayable. And definitely something that you probably would pass on to other people, which I'm sure it's about to tell you. I appreciate a good physical book. I thought you would. How long does responding to a prompt generally take in your experience? Very good question. I was sort of speaking this a little bit earlier, but for me, when I'm doing solo role-playing games, I tend to think a lot aloud and sort of monologue quite a bit. And then when I get to actually crystallizing what the thought is, I go, well, bleh, I don't know, because I've already said all the words I wanted to say. But for this, it suggests so the main mechanic, just for you, Brian, is that you have, for each prompt that is creating an experience must go into a memory. You can have in your head 5 memories at any one time, each can have up to 3 experiences within them, so 15 experiences in total. And each one of those experiences is supposed to be like an evocative line summarizing that experience, which is usually like what the it's sort of in 2 parts, so like what happened and how you feel about it as the vampire. And that's what it is. It's supposed to summarize it, but you're supposed to take a moment to reflect about what that actually means. And it could be something like that experience could literally be like a couple of seconds, or it could be months, years, encapsulating. It doesn't matter what it is. And there's some examples which I can show as well. For me, because I take forever to come up with ideas and stuff, and I like talking things through, I think each prompt took me about 5 minutes. But obviously I'm doing this for like a stream, aren't I? So I'm doing it for like, explaining things through, because otherwise it would be a very boring podcast if you just heard me reading out the prompt and go good and then carry on. But I guess if you're just writing it down, it's fine. There's also 2 modes for this game as well. There's like the fast and loose one, where you just go without a diary, an in-game diary. It's either that or the journaling one. So you either do fast and loose, where you don't write anything down, you sort of speak it aloud, and then the journaling one is where you deliberately write out all the things that expand on it, but also have to deal with the game mechanics as well. So those are the sort of 2 different experiences. I think it is as you come. One thing I'd say is that I did mine in when I did my live stream, I did one live stream and then I came back to finish it, and both of those were about 2 hours, so 4 hours in total. I know people that have played this game and they've done like an entry a day, and I always think that's quite interesting because I'm bad at doing those. I need to sit down and just do it. It's what I call, I don't know if you've heard of it, there's a term called artist state. It's where you don't do anything else. You go, I need to look after my inner child and play these role-playing games. So that's what I suggest. I guess it's each to their own. If you're some person that can do an entry a day, absolutely go for it. It's just, I've done that with other solo RPGs, and whilst it's fun, sometimes days you like, oh god, it's 5 to midnight and I've not done my entry. Thank you for explaining it. No problem, Brian. Thank you. Hey, it turns out I read the stuff before you arrived, so that's good. So this is Appendix 2. Is the random numbers. So what it talked about before, again, if you didn't have any dice to hand, you literally can look at the sheet and either point, flip a coin, do anything like that. Wild, I think. I think, again, you could always put into like a number generator, generate a number between like -16 and or whatever those numbers would be. -16 and 9 would be I think the positive ones on that. Yeah, that would work. And like I said, some of this art style is incredible, but even if it takes up the whole thing, there is, I think I said it before at the beginning of the stream, so Tim Hutchings is an interesting gentleman. I'll talk about my brief experience when I met him at UK Games Expo at the end, but he creates books that are definitely art over game design at times. So there is something called the 1,000-Year Vampires like companion piece, and it is completely illegible. It's like like all the stuff's like blurred out, redacted, all that sort of thing, and it's still 40 quid, and people complained about it because they thought it was an actual RPG, even though he said himself, please do not buy this book. It was like something just to have, and even like I think even the front cover had it all like scribbled out and stuff like that. I don't know how I feel about that personally, because especially when we're going through like low resources and like, I don't know, it's like art, but I wouldn't be, I don't know, it's each to their own, but it just felt like a waste of paper, if you see what I mean. And I don't think it was ever a PDF, and I wonder why. Okay, volume 3, appendix 3, sorry. A non-verbal, so this talks about safety tools. So one of the things that I found really interesting earlier in the stream is that it talked about playing hard but being aware of yourself and aware of your surroundings. So this is a safety tool it suggests for doing narrative play, to embrace that sort of darkness whilst keeping yourself. So they've called it here 1,000-Year-Old Flower. So this is by Taylor Stokes. On a following placement you will find a flower with yellow petals circling a red centre surrounded by green leaves labelled with emotional and physical descriptors. Use this to track your experience in play. Let me zoom in a little bit. Sorry, because my eyes are terrible. Oh no. Use this to track your play experience as you play by noticing when you're experiencing something described on the flower and making a dot in the coloured area that corresponds to your experience, and recording the current chapter number next to the dot, and continuing to work your way around clockwise, adding dots and chapter numbers until you notice your responses to play and connect the dots with the lines as you go, making a chart of your play experience. Interesting. Take a moment every couple of prompts to gaze upon the flower and reflect on your play experience. Add the dots and notes accordingly, but don't worry if you aren't finding your experience described on the flower. Not everyone's will be. Try and notice some patterns as you go. Review the tale as needed. This will help you have a more fulfilling play. I've never heard of this sort of tool before. How interesting. How often are you in the green? What do those chapters have in common? Do you see what you do to steer your story towards similar moments? If you're in the green most of the time, then things are going well. How often are you in the yellow? These moments often describe deeply engaging play experiences. For example, some people having roughly equal mixture of greens and yellows describe their peak play experiences. Listen to your instincts for what is working and is best for you. Are you dipping into the red at all? Play experiences in the red indicate what you should probably be aware of and steer away from these moments. What can you do to learn from these experiences? Have you gone into the red a couple more times If you've gone into read more than a couple of times, are you sure you're enjoying yourself? Consider taking a break. Once you've done playing, review your play experience by tracking your path across the flower, skimming the chapters you've made note of. Which of these moments do you remember most clearly? Does your charted experience reveal something about that you didn't already know? Ah, so this is a double spread. I appreciate. Obviously, I've only got a single page spread on the thing. I wonder if I can see it in my actual book. So this is quite further back in the chapter. Appendix 3. Here we go. Oh wow, let me have a look at. Let's go big cam, big face. There you go. This is what it looks like. Very cool. What does it say here? My breathing has changed. Is in the green. Someone should make a movie out of this. It's very green. Stiff and numb is one of the red ones as well. Let's see. Oh, you can also see it on here as well if I just move out. Actually, if I move out quite a bit, you should be able to see both. Obviously, you won't be able to read any of it. This is quite cool. I'd love it if there was like an actual printout of this to hand, just so that you could have it. I would. Yeah, it's interesting. I've never experienced anything like that before. Maybe I'll do that for when I do the actual stream. I'll see if there's like and there must be a way I can get them fuse those pages together. That's very cool. I like it. Different way of doing safety. It feels very engaging that way. And then we have oh yes, so then we have an interview with Tim Hutchings, which again you can read this in your own time. I think this is also maybe repeated on the old Kickstarter as well somewhere. So let's get through this because it's just an interview. Yes, that was it. It was originally called 1,000-Year-Old Vampire Arises. Oh no, I guess that's what it kind of, I don't know, arises. Was it that on the Kickstarter? I can't remember. But yeah, some more interviews with them about game design, which again, really interesting. It's good to know about it. I think he has done some other talks as well at certain cons, but they're not available online, unfortunately. Unless folks out there have seen it, please share it because I'd love to know. And then finally, here it is. Finally. Appendix 5, suggestions for group play. Now, I sort of mentioned earlier in the stream that there is something called 500-Year-Old Vampire, which is, I believe, a hack of this 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which makes it multiplayer with cards. I've backed it, but I didn't read much of it. It's very typical of myself. Oh no, how embarrassing. Thank you, Brian. Do you want to show the PDF again? You took it down. Yes, apologies. Massive apologies. So yeah, that was very embarrassing. Clearly, like I said, it's been a rough evening for me, just trying to get on track. Anyway, I'll show you quickly, then go back up. So yeah, so these are the interviews. So the 2-column S, I think there's 2 interviews or so. Rushing back up. And yeah, so this is what I was talking about. There we go, the flower. I think I will try and get a copy of it that I can put together and use that for when I do my actual playthrough in, I think it's going to be in the autumn. I think it's going to be, anyway, let's go to the final appendix. Gosh. Thanks for catching that, Brian. I'm so, like I said, normally I'm on these things, but I'm not. Anyway, so as I was saying, there's a 500-Year-Old Vampire that is out on Kickstarter right now, and that's definitely multiplayer rules. But here are the suggestions for group play here. And again, tiny writing. God, it's so tiny. Hacking rules is a fundamental part of role-playing. It is a part of the delight of gaming to take a system and break it gently until it's yours, and because no one else wants the broken pieces of game crockery scattered about the room. Even though 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is a solo game, it only takes a little work to modify it for simultaneous play with multiple players. Below you'll find suggestions for 2 different ways you might decide to do this to suit the quick and journaling modes of solo play. The rules presented here are a loose guide to playing the game as a group. Adjust them as needed. If you want to spend 3 hours role-playing out a scene in character, go ahead. Whatever you do, follow good game practices and make sure that everyone is having a fun, fruitful experience. Journaling games that take days or weeks. When playing as a group, the slower the journaling game takes on a this is where I always say this word wrong. Epistolary or letter writing format. This I've used in Good Society by Story Brewers. Players love letter writing. Honestly, you tell players to go away from in the break and write letters, they'll do it. They'll spend 20 minutes writing letters to each other. It's great. Whenever you generate a prompt for your vampire, write your response as a letter to the other players instead of a journaling entry. Ooh. Play happens simultaneously, although the players will need to keep their vampires in similar timelines. If a big jump occurs for one vampire, the others will need to catch up. This feels very Dracula. I love this idea of sending letters back and forth. Oh, very cool. Maybe the remaining players make 2 or 3 rolls when they catch up to the character who has fallen asleep for 1,000 years. Oh, very cool. Quick games that take a few hours. Quick games work best when they are played at the table face to face. No one is writing out long journal entries, so responses can be kept brief. The players can keep their attention focused on whoever is taking a turn, showing their interest in the player and their character. You might want to allow subsequent players to roll their prompts in advance and think through them ahead of their turn. In quick play, brevity is key. Players honour the intention of one-sentence experiences by describing prompt reactions in just a few lines. You shouldn't need to act out scenes. It isn't that kind of experience. The larger the group, the slower you will progress through the list of prompts. Consider rolling 2 d10s instead of 1 and subtracting the usual single d6. This will both speed up the game and prevent players from rolling the same prompts again and again. Time and geography are other considerations. If there is a big time jump during a group quick play, each player can simply incorporate a 100-year leap into their own narratives. It's also helpful to geographically reunite the vampires every couple of rounds by keeping them in adjacent towns or nearby regions where they can still interact with each other. Of course, physical separation becomes less important as modern transport and communications shrink once great distances. I think instantly I can see this descending into What We Do in the Shadows. And having the 4 vampire flatmates and Guillermo. Sounds amazing. If someone rolls a prompt that's already been encountered by another player, progress to the first new entry within the prompt. Yeah. So, if one player encounters the first entry in the prompt, the next player who rolls that prompt would skip the first entry and encounter the second. These vampires may or may not share the narrative arc of the entries in the prompts. It's up to their players to decide what makes sense. Now I want to play a game with letters where we introduce a Cyrano de Bergerac. That's not how I pronounce it. Yes, I know who you mean. There's a film that's just come out about it as well. Oh, yes, very cool. It's so much fun to have like a historical letter writing thing, and with that slow one as well, that slow burn one, you can properly do research and making sure that your character, like digging into maybe trying to find like a real life person to base off your character, as you said, where the letter is not from who it appears to be. I love it. Oh, good idea, Brian. General multiplayer rules. Both game formats encourage players to gently push and pull at each other. Part of the way this works is through sharing characters and resources. When initially creating your group of vampires, they should be geographically close to each other, and should each of them have a relationship from one vampire at the table. Oh, so very Fiasco-like it could be. One of my vampire's characters, the chief sapper in the army of an Assyrian general, could be romantically entangled with the general's heir, who happens to be another player's vampire. Create interconnections between the characters like this helps the group flesh out the relationships between their own vampires and provides them with something to reminisce about in 300 or 400 years' time. Amazing. Characters may be given an additional relationship with another player's vampire every time a prompt causes an interaction with the character. For example, early on in the game, I created Burek, an American Civil War veteran. He stokes the fire at an Antarctic retreat, and in a later prompt, I determined that he stole my diary. Oh no! So this is the other thing. So you can only hold 5 memories in your head, right? But you can choose to put any of these memories into a diary, which can hold up to 4 of them. And once they're transferred over there, you can't alter them anymore. They are as written. But if you lose your diary, you lose those memories. Incredible. So I love that idea that another vampire stole your diary and has your memories, and is probably using them against you as well. Any character, regardless who created them, can be tapped by any player to satisfy a character requirement in a prompt. Characters that are owned by any one player, but it's best to pay attention to when the characters are invested in players are invested in a character and would prefer that they weren't murdered without good reason. Oh, what about the bad reasons? Resources can move between vampires too. If a prompt instructs a player to gain a resource, that player can elect to take a resource from another player's vampire. Optionally, when told to lose a resource, a player may choose to steal a resource from another vampire. Roll a d6. On a 1 to 3, thief gains a resource. On a 4 to 6, the stolen resource is lost to both vampires, but still satisfies the loser resource requirement from the prompt, i.e. it's scratched out. And then we've got some play examples. I like those rules though. I feel like the journaling like days and weeks one would be really fun if you were doing like a proper snail mail type game, or I know back in the day like the forums and stuff. Face to face could also be quite good. I think the face to face one would be a really cool performance type one, like if you're proper arty performance one. You just need to be careful of timings on that one, I think. Play examples. We don't need to go into them here, but again, as I said, this game is incredibly straightforward, and so just reading them through might give you some ideas of what you want to do. Appendix 7. What is a role-playing game? A bit late for that. I'll be honest, a bit late. But you can see again, this artwork is just very cool. Again, I wonder like if you were going to create like a physical artifact or keepsake, making props like this could be really interesting. Maybe because it says about like if you're describing your diary, like is it a leather-bound book or is it pictures on pots and all that sort of thing. Imagine if it was just a collection of postcards that you kept somewhere. That'd be cool. And then we've got the credits, which is exciting. Obviously Tim Hutchings, who did the game design, layout and collage. Got all these other folks here that have obviously contributed in some way. Additional prompts. Jesse Rainbow also did some prompts as well. Lead playtester as well. Very cool. And yeah, safety tools. Taylor Stokes. Yeah, image sources. So this is really interesting. Is that these places like the British Library and stuff like they just have all these images that you can use as long as you credit them, and obviously you get stuff like this. It's very reminiscent of. If you ever talk to Johan Noor, who is basically the graphic designer behind Mortboard, Piratborg, Cyborg, any and Into the Odd, most recent Into the Odd, he just creates a lot of his artwork is through these copyright-free images from libraries and stuff, and just creating art like that, and it's absolutely incredible. And it just looks so stylish. So would recommend that. And look, some early reviews as well we've got here. Shut up and sit down. There you go. How exciting is that? And Appendix 9. So this is the character sheet, so a character record. This game is to be played in a notebook or on a large white wall, or an ancient scroll, or a scroll ancient and lengthy. Or maybe you'll incise the words on a field of mud using a pointed stick. Record your character however you like. Just so you know, it's not practical to use a single sheet of paper because your vampire's memories will quickly outgrow it. Nonetheless, on the next page you'll find a character sheet. Do with it as you will. Let's have a look. Oh, it is. Oh, okay. I was gonna say, is it just literally a page? No. So you got your memories, up to 5 memories there, and then you got character marks. Okay, so it's not like a proper dedicated character sheet, but it's quite nice with the text. And then yeah, so that's it. So you keep your memories. I guess because I remember printing out this before and trying to use post-it notes, but that didn't really work either. So I remember he responded to a message I did ages ago, and he said that using a Word document or using an online cloud file is the best way to it if you're doing something quick and easy. And then designer notes at the end, which we won't go into, but I'll just have a quick look for just in case there's anything more designer notes there. So yeah, there you go. And look at that torn out page there. So there you go. We've gone, an hour and a half has flown by, but that is 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. Those are very cool ideas for multiplayer mode. Very creative. Yeah, I agreed. Here's my 1,000-Year-Old Vampire Shadowbox. Maybe you have puppets as well. Shadow theatre. But there you go. Yeah, I can say this from experience. I highly recommend 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. I think it's a really interesting solo RPG. I think it's a good one to start with if people are just starting out doing solo RPGs in general. I will say, obviously, it comes with a massive load of content warnings, as we saw on page 2, 3, where there is. It is a big, nice yellow big thing there. Sort of sticker there. That's where all the content warnings are for this game, and I think that's quite important because not only is it yourself who is like, obviously you become this sort of monstrosity, let's face it, but also you might harm other people that you might be seen as punching down, perhaps, depending on how you're writing it. Again, it's just something to be aware of on that sense. I think that safety tool at the back is quite interesting as well, that sort of 1,000-year-old flower, which I definitely might use for this game, because I think it'd just be interesting to track it, so to speak. So yeah, I don't know if it's for everyone. As with all solo RPGs, it is very, very reflective. My recommendations would be like, absolutely try it. I try and do it in one sitting, have a quick go of it as well. It is like choose your own adventure, so don't feel precious about like, oh, I don't like that prompt I got. I mean, it's that whole thing about leaning into it, like enjoy how difficult it is whilst taking care of yourself, so I highly recommend that. And yet you can grab this book. Oh, thank you. Oh, great. Well, thank you. It's like I said, it's been a bit tricky stream, but I appreciate you coming out and seeing me towards the end, and I definitely need to go to bed. But yeah, you can grab a copy on 1000yearoldvampire.com. There's obviously PDFs and stuff. Check out his other books on there. What I will say though, I'll have to be completely honest. So I have met Tim Hutchings. I'm subscribed to his newsletter, and he did sign this book, which again I will show because I appreciate you weren't here at the beginning. But there you go. He did a beautiful drawing, which does say Fiona in it. He was very grumpy. I'll put it like that. There is that whole thing about never meet your heroes, but he was a bit. It was very interesting to have my book signed by him and then have an interaction which I actually deemed wasn't very positive. However, I appreciate that obviously as a game designer, it is very hard sometimes maybe that people really like your work, and it's a different level of fame because you're just a normal person creating the games, and sometimes people don't come through. But I have to be honest with that. Like like I said, I recommend buying his games and stuff like that, but I think just tread carefully if you should meet him at any conventions and stuff like that. I think just treat people with sort of respect in that sense. I hoped I was respectful as well, but I did seem to catch him at a bad point, I think. But I thought I'd just quickly share that because I think it's kind of important just to be like, sometimes people don't want to sign your book. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested, we have a Discord. Well, we have several things. First of all, there is Where, which is What Am I Rolling, a twice-monthly RPG one-shot podcast where we do lots of different RPGs. We're doing Die, the role-playing game at the moment, which is going very, very well. That at some point we're doing a too long didn't read stream of that, which will be fun. Might not do all of it. Might be 2 streams actually because it's quite a big book. But I highly recommend checking that out. We've also got the DM's Book Club, which is also a book club podcast about D&D. So if you're like, Fiona, why did you talk about vampires and there wasn't a 5th edition stat block there? And the answer is like, well, it's not Curse of Strahd Night. Yeah, so if you're interested in that, what we do, we talk about D&D, but we talk about a whole lot of other RPGs as well, which hopefully we're going to go into doing the GM's Book Club at some point as well. It's still in the works, mostly because I need to do some editing on that. Finally, I swear, I don't think I've set up the offer code, damn it. Probably not. It's going to be dice. I don't know if that's the right one. But I'm going to wait till Nightbot does anything. No, Nightbot's going to do it. I need to check, but we do have an offer code now for Tabletop Dominion. If you type in WHERE, WAIR, into checkout for Tabletop Dominion, you get 10% off your order, which is very, very nice. Oh my god, it actually worked. It was dice. Oh, something's gone right. Yeah, so check that out. Finally, I do have a lot of these streams coming up. soon. But if you are interested in horror and interested to see me running an actual play stream, tomorrow is the start of the Girls Run These Worlds premiere, well, season 2 of Alien, Destroyer of Worlds. It's the premiere. I've done my intro, I've written it all out. I just need to reread the module tomorrow, which will be very, very exciting. And those are all the things. Come, final. I'm like Columbo. Also awesome. Come check out the Discord. If you're interested in what I've said here tonight and you're like, oh, I don't think you got the rules right. I'm pretty sure I have, but you never know. Come join the Discord. Come hang out there. We can talk about lots of different RPGs. Come say hello to Brian, who talks about murder mystery RPGs as well. It's a lovely bunch of folks, and we just want to play role-playing games and just enjoy them for what they are, because not everyone gets a chance to experience ones outside of the big ones. So come check those out. Anyway. Thank you so much for bearing with me. It's been an hour and a half of craziness. I'm going to see how I can get this virus off my computer. I'm sure it's completely fine. Until then, folks, have a wonderful evening. And I'm going to awkwardly try and find the end of the stream. Oh, go to end of stream video. Okay, I'm going to wave awkwardly, and I'll see you folks next time. Bye!